What's up everyone, my name is Murray, welcome to the video. You're gonna see how we create that intro, or technically it's a stinger transition, but it was originally created as an intro for 𝗧𝗥𝗔𝗡𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗍𝒂, a big streamer by 𝗣𝗧𝗏𝗏 motion designer. Very good at what he does, very talented, and I figured I would try and recreate what he created. But he created it as an intro. I'm gonna do it as a stinger transition, show you guys how to actually make a stinger transition, because I haven't really done that. I have a lot of downloads. I'll leave a link in the description. You can get all of those for free if you want to. You use the coupon free at checkout. In total, I think there's about 13 stinger transitions. There's one pack of 10 transitions and there's another pack of 3. I'll leave the links to both of them down below. I'll also pin them in the comment. You can get those for free, but I'm going to show you guys how to actually make one in After Effects. Now keep in mind, this whole process took me about 2.5 hours to actually create the stinger from start to finish. And that's also without having to build the concept from scratch. I'm blatantly copying the stinger transition. But when you're brainstorming it from scratch, it might take a bit longer. Sometimes it could even take days. But I recorded the whole process from start to finish. I didn't clearly polish it at the end. So keep that in mind. There's a bit of a buffer there, but it took 2.5 hours to create that. Just to give you an idea of how much time this actually takes to create. Even in this example, it's like 7 seconds. But yeah, you can use this as an intro or a stinger transition. I'm going to show you a lot of the techniques on what you use to create this. And yeah, I guess we're going to go ahead and quickly see how this stinger transition works once again. But yeah, those of you who are watching, leave a comment down below. I want to know what you guys think. I do a little bit of gaming. If you guys are interested in gaming, there is a Discord link down in the description. Also in that Discord server, we do a lot of visual effects, editing, filmmaking, a lot of stuff just showing people our work and asking questions, support, all that kind of stuff. Also, if you're trying to set up your stream, there's also a lot of frequently asked questions there. And we answer a lot of people's questions, kind of help out type of stuff. But let's see if we can get a win here. Doing a few new things to the channel as well. Let me know if you guys like it or not. But trying to have some fun with it and maybe include you guys a little more, because I think it's awesome that you guys want to stick around. There's 20,000 of you, which is insane. I heard a guy. Where is he at? Alright. Not bad. Okay, he's inside. Alright. So I'm not completely useless, but you know, I can still work on some stuff. M4K9 favorite combo. No question about it. Oh, oops, thank you. Alright, there's a guy close. Alrighty, well, I guess we're into the tutorial. Let's jump in. Alright, so remember, because you're working with gradients, you need to change your bits to 32-bit or 16-bit, because if you have it on 8-bit, your gradients aren't going to be so smooth and they're not going to look that great. So change it to either 16-bit or 32-bit just by clicking on this button and you're good to go. So I've got the video layer on the bottom here. I'm just going to use this as a reference. First thing I'm going to do with nothing selected is grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to draw a shape around the eyes where the eyes are fully formed into the mean cat kind of face. And I'm just going to trace this on 2 different layers. So the first layer is one eye, and then I'm going to create a second layer with the other eye, and I'm just going to rename them just so I can keep organization. Next, I'm going to remove the stroke and just have a fill of white. I'm going to toggle down the contents, the shape, and then the path. What I'm going to do is keyframe the path, and then I'm going to go back in time to where the eyes are round, and I'm just going to adjust the mask so that it is in a circle in the shape of the eyes. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other eye. Then I'm going to select those keyframes, press F9 on the keyboard, and then I'm going to go into the graph editor here, and I'm just going to adjust the motion of the keyframes. That way it comes in a little quick and then eases out a bit, just to add a little bit of smooth motion, and it looks nice and professional without too much work being done. Next, I'm going to do the same thing with the nose, exactly the same process as the eyes. Keep in mind that this whole process is going to be very repetitive because there's a lot of the same type of techniques just done in a different way. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down in time a little bit to see where the eyes kind of pop up, and I'm just going to adjust the position of the eyes and the nose together. I'm going to do them all at the same time, and I'm just going to add a little bit of motion, so drag them up a little further than where they need to be, and then drag them back down as I go further down in time. Make them easy ease keyframes, ease them down, and adjust these keyframes a little bit to make the motion look a little more realistic and a little more professional as well. Now obviously this process would definitely take a little longer if you're doing this completely from scratch and you're building the concept by yourself. Obviously I have the main concept already designed for me. I don't have to do any of the hard thinking type of thing. But even still, this process took 2.5 hours to create. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to adjust the position of the mask. So go down in time, reposition the mask. That way those big mean eyes turn into some kind of cute looking cat eyes. Keep in mind that I adjusted the position of the layer as well. Further down the line, I realized that was a mistake. So do not adjust the position of the layer, only adjust the mask position. Otherwise it's going to do some funky things and it's going to go all over the place, just like that. So keep that in mind. Don't adjust the position of the layer itself, only adjust the position of the mask. It's going to save you a lot of time in the future as well. So I'm having to redo that work because I shouldn't have had adjusted the position of the layer in the first place, only the mask. So once that kind of does its little motions, I time it up correctly, make sure the frames are easy ease keyframes. I go into the graph editor with this little button and I adjust the motion of those easy ease keyframes. It's just going to make the movement a little more natural. And then I'm just going to repeat the process for the other eye. And again, I don't have to be exact as the concept underneath. I can obviously add my own touch to it, but I'm trying to be a little specific and exact here because I kind of want this to look really good. The original result was really nice and I kind of wanted to recreate it pretty similar. But feel free to use your creativity to make it the way you want. Obviously later down I'm going to add some of my own personal flair to it and see where that takes me. Next thing I'm going to do is adjust the position of the eyes and the rotation as it goes down, as the R kind of comes down and hits the cat, just to add some motion to it, add a bit of bump to it, kind of add some realism and reaction because there's a cause and a reaction to that cause, so it would add a little bit more realism to it. So I'm currently focusing on the eyes, making sure that's all right. I'm going to use a null object so that I can control all of them at once. That would include the nose as well. And that'll also include the tongue a little later on too. And again, it's just a lot of tweaking. I'm cheating a little bit by just copying the motion. It's saving me a lot of time and a lot of brainstorming. And yeah, it's just a lot easier. Now you can obviously create your own movements. I'm just going to keep it simple because this is more of teaching you the concepts of how you can get this, showing you how this guy actually created this showing you how he actually created this intro. And again, just repositioning everything like the nose here, just like all the other assets. A pretty repetitive process, but it can be quite fun. Next thing I'm going to do is the tongue. With no layer selected, I'm going to get my pen tool and draw the tongue, and I'm going to keyframe the position of that mask. Further down in time, I'm going to reposition it and just adjust it where I need it to be. And I'm going to kind of make it come around and lick his eye like it has done in the original video. And at many points in the video, I turn off the main original video so I can kind of see where my progress is. That way I can see if I've made any mistakes or if I maybe find some other inspiration for the visuals. Next are the teeth. I just traced them on a new layer. This was pretty easy, self-explanatory. And what I did was I duplicated that path and repositioned that mask. That way I wouldn't have to redraw everything. It saved me a bunch of time. All these masks are on the same layer. That makes things a little less complicated and all over the place. It just keeps things a little organized. Obviously duplicating this saves a bunch of time, makes things so much easier. Alright, with all those teeth done, I'm going to make sure I pre-compose this layer with Ctrl-Shift-C, or just right-click and pre-compose. Grab a mask, drag it around the mouth, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the mask properties, increase the expansion. I can actually keyframe the expansion, make sure the mask is on add, and I can keyframe the mask expansion in time and slowly reveal that mouth or those teeth. One other neat little tool I use is the puppet tool. I just create a couple points along the mouth and I can keyframe those as I skew the mouth a little bit. So I can drag them, skew the mouth, kind of add as if it's going to start smiling, adds a little bit of realism to the smile itself, increase the mask expansion with keyframing. That way it reveals the mouth, adds a little bit of warp to it so it's almost as if it's got a bigger smile than it has before. It just adds some dimension and looks very nice. Next thing, I just go down in time, keyframe the position and the scale as the eyes go smaller all the way back down to a small kitten. And eventually the mouth disappears completely. Now we're getting somewhere. It's starting to look like a evil cat thing. Next, I wanted to work on the eyes blinking, so what I did was I created a new solid. It's just in the shape of a circle. I turned it into a 3D layer, parented it to the corresponding eye, and what I did is I rotated it on the x-axis. That way it'll look like it'll be blinking. It's the same color as the background, so it blends in nice and clearly. Then I just added a fast blur onto it to kind of blur the edges. That way I didn't have to actually mask the solid. And then I just keyframe the rotation on the x-axis, add a blinking motion to it, and I do the same for the other eye. Very simple and easy, basic stuff, but it can come up with some really amazing results. Next thing I do is I add a shadow to the eye, so I duplicate that eye. I remove half of the bottom part of the little nulls on the mask shape. That way I can turn it into a semicircle type of thing. And the nice thing about it, it's already keyframed, so it adjusts automatically for the most part. I have to do a couple tweaks, but it's already following the eyes later on. Next thing I do is I just reduce its opacity in time as it goes down to the small kitten. That way it disappears and it's not in the way later on. Obviously, don't forget to change the color of it because that's where the look is, and you may have to do some tweaking on it a little bit later as well. So I've done that with both eyes, and adds a little bit of dimension to the eyes. Looks a little more realistic and looks quite nice actually. I quite like it. The next thing is actually quite fun. It's the little lines, kind of adding some motion to the whole thing when the cat face turns into a larger cat, but it's small in the R. So it adds a bit of motion to everything. You literally just drag a shape and you keyframe its position from outside of the frame all the way down to the center of frame. Increase its scale towards the outside of the frame, and as it gets closer to the center of frame, decrease the size a little bit. Obviously, make sure you keyframe these. That way it actually works down in time and it's not actually stuck on its scale or position properties. Then just duplicate it a couple times, change them in time a little bit so they're offset a little bit. That way they're not all happening at the same time. Very easy stuff, but very effective again. A lot of these techniques are repetitive, but they do have their variations, and sometimes these subtle effects are really awesome. Next thing I did is I just duplicated all of those layers, pre-composed those new layers, rotated them a little bit, and I've doubled the amount of lines moving down the frame at a few clicks, which is awesome. Next thing is the text. I just grabbed this text and the font that I used was 𝗬𝗧𝗜𝗏, and I just used a black. I added a outline to it to kind of increase it a little bit, because if I had it darker than black, it was going to not work very well. So I added a stroke to it and that worked out. But 𝗬𝗧𝗏 is the font I used. I just created the letters individually. I didn't actually create them in the same layer. Turn those texts into 3D layers, and all you need to do is make sure you create a keyframe for the position of each of these letters at this point in time. Go back in time, bring them closer to the camera in Z space, so adjust the Z axis, making sure obviously you've pressed the keyframe or the stopwatch next to the properties, and just bring it all the way forward until it passes the camera so it's not in frame. Next thing you do is, once you've revealed those keyframes, just offset them a little bit to kind of add some dimension. That way the letters come in at different periods in the animation. Now don't forget, one of the most important things to sell these effects is to check on the motion blur box and in the composition tab. This is going to add some realistic motion blur to your animations, and it just makes things look much nicer and more professional. Next thing I did was I just created the R, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-compose that R, and I'm going to just go into that layer, draw a shape around the open part of the R and the bottom part. That way the R is completely filled in. That kind of looks cool like that, and the original creator of that also decided to do that, and I think that was a good call. But when it came to the R, I didn't have to turn it into a 3D layer, because all I was doing is I was moving it on a 2D axis. So from the outer frame on top all the way down into its final position in the middle of the frame. Next thing I did was I just created the outline of the cat, the same color as the background. That way I didn't have to do any fancy alpha matte or anything like that. It just made things a lot easier. And then, like I did with the eyes, I just keyframed the rotation and the position of the head just a little bit to add some movement to it. Nothing serious, some very basic stuff there. Next thing I did is I just created triangles for the ears. I wasn't too worried about what it looked like on the body because it was going to blend in because it's the same color, but I just created these in the shape of a triangle, and the way I made the ear flicker is I just adjusted the position of the ear just a little bit, brought it back to its final position, and then again further down in time after I've keyframed the position of the mask, or even just the whole layer itself, I drag the ear down a little bit to make it a little smaller, and then go down in time and make sure it's back at its final position. That'll add a little bit of a flicker to the ear, kind of add a bit of dimension to it, and not make it so stale and static. And then one of the fun parts was adding the little explosions that the R creates when it hits the ground. I just have these assets downloaded. You can create them frame by frame using a shape layer in After Effects using the pen tool, but that takes a little bit of time to create. I already had these on my computer as assets, so I used those. I'll leave a link to assets like this down in the description, but these are super useful and they help sell the effect a lot more. Last thing to do, because obviously this is a stinger transition, I am going to adjust the position of the background, which is just the solid color. I go down in time, take it out after I've keyframed the position. And I do the same with everything else. I keep the background separate from everything in the foreground. So what I do is I just create a new null object, parent everything in the composition to that null object except for the background. The background is independent to itself. Next, I just adjust the position of that null object. That way it moves everything out of frame. Now you can choose to pre-compose those layers instead of parenting them to the null, but I figured I'm just going to do it to the null, keep everything in the same composition. Again, I just added these motion shapes to kind of add some movement to the text as it goes out. Just looks really cool, helps sell the effect a little bit. It's sometimes these small things that add a huge impact to the animation, and no matter how simple or insignificant they may seem, when it's all finally combined and everything works out, it just looks great. So yeah, really fun. Hope you guys enjoyed. It is a little bit longer than my usual tutorials, but creating a stinger transition, I wanted to show you the whole process, to show you how much work actually went in it. So I guess that is it, but we're gonna go ahead and leave. But if you guys enjoyed, consider subscribing, stick around for the future. That really does help the channel out, as well as giving it a like. Thank you for the thumbs up. Only do that if you think it deserves it. But I do appreciate any of the support you guys give. Remember, you can download a bunch of free stinger transitions if you want to. Down in the description, use the coupon FREE at checkout, or pay for them. That's also cool. Thank you for the support, I appreciate it. More awesome stuff coming in the future. But until then, remember, keep smiling, keep shooting.
There goes nothing.